is it not going? It's Monday night. That's not the same. Oh, gosh. Okay. I don't know if they hear me.
We can hear you.
Rebbitzin, I can hear you. It just looks like something is blocking the camera, or it might be facing the wrong direction.
What? Where is it? But you don't have to use it.
Pull it out. Plug it in.
Okay.
Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. This coming Shabbos is Parshas Bamidbar. Okay, this Shabbos is Parshas Bamidbar. Bamidbar is referred to in the Gemara as Chumash Apkudim because it starts with the census of the Jewish people. What was the role of the census? What was the purpose? Every country has to have an army to protect themselves. So the Jewish people needed an army also. And the way Rashi points out, they only drafted you into the army if you're over the age of 20. And you have to, the Mulchamas, a lot of the Mulchamas, well, the Ma'ala min Ateva, everything was with Nisim and Flaws. But you have to, Ein Samach Malanes. You have to take a census to see how many soldiers there are and have them divided up into battalions. So that was the purpose, that was the role of the census that they took. They had to take a census, each shevet individually. And the pasuk implies lemishpachoisam leveis avoisam pasuk base. If there was a mixed marriage where the father was from one shevet, the mother was from another shevet, so what is the status of the children? So the halacha says lemishpachoisam leveis avoisam. Mishpacha sab kriyim mishpacha, mishpacha same ene kriyim mishpacha. We have different dinim in the Chumash that depend on relatives. Let's say you have Kroivim Apostle Edis, and there's a din of Yerusha, and then there's a din of Gilui Arayis, certain relatives you're not allowed to marry. So the Torah by the Gilui Arayis, it says, Ish ish al kol she'er b'soroi, l'sikavro l'gal sabah. The expression used is she'er basa. She'er basa includes relatives from the mother's side and relatives from the father's side. By Yerusha, it says, Aloshan, mimishpachta b'yorosha. So only mishpacha sab kuriya mishpacha, mishpacha same ena kuriya mishpacha. Same thing, psuli edis. That's a question. The Rambam writes that kroivim mitzad ha'eim psulim la'edis medivrei sofrim. So that's a question whether he means midirabbanan or he means Torah Shebal Peh. Because the Mishnah there thinks that just like he wrote that Kedusha Kesef in the beginning of Hilchos Ishus, there's a famous Rambam. Rambam says that Kedusha Shtar and Kedusha Bia are based on Torah Shebechsam, and Kedusha Kesef is Divrei Sofrim. So the Pashta says he doesn't mean that it's Midirabban, it means that it's Torah Shebal Peh. So over here also the Kes Mishnah says sometimes Divrei Sofrim, the expression Divrei Sofrim and the Rambam means Torah Shebaal Peh, something that the Sofrim developed or discussed or transmitted. So it includes both dinim of the Araisa that are Torah Shebaal Peh and dinim Derabanan are also called Divrei Sofrim. So sometimes you can't tell. But that's how the Kes Mishnah learns. Just like he understood the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Ishus, that Kiddushay Kesed Divrei Sofrim doesn't mean Midrabban, means Torah Shebaal Peh. So the Kes Mishnah thinks the same is true regarding Psuli Edis by Kroivim Mitzad Ha'im. He thinks that it's Deraisa. Okay, but we usually distinguish that the Chaloshem Sher Basar applies both to Kroivim from the mother's side and the father's side, and the Chaloshem Kurva, the relationship of Mishpacha Zon and Mishpacha Sav. Yeah, that's the Gemara says. The Gemara says, what if you have a mixed marriage by non-Jews? The halacha gives a special status of Aman Amayav. Loyav Amani Mayav B'Kal Hashem. Only Amani but Amanis, the women may, the men may not. So there's a special din for Aman Amayav, special din for Mitzvah, V'Doimid or Shlishi Avalahem B'Kal Hashem, special din for Amalekim, and a special din for the Zainumas. So what if you have a couple who have a mixed marriage? The father is one nationality, the mother is a different nationality. How do you determine the status of the children when you have a mixed marriage? So the halacha says, it's all determined by the father. You ignore the status of the mother. It's all determined by the father. If you have a mixed marriage where both parents are Jewish, also it's determined by the father, whether the child is a Kohen, Levi, Shevet Yisachar, Shevet Zvulun. That's this pasuk and pasuk base in Parshas Bamidbar. It's determined by the father. When you have a mixed marriage where one parent is Jewish, one parent is non-Jewish, so then Tosfos points out in Yevamos at the end of the first parak on Tezayin on the base, there's a big fat Tosfos there. So Tosfos points out that there are three opinions in the Gemara. What opinion is that when you have, in order for the children to be Jewish, you have to have both parents have to be Jewish. If only one is Jewish, the other one is not, the child is not Jewish. The other sheet in the Gemara has been adopted in recent years by the Reform and the Conservative, patrilineal descent, either father or the mother. If either the father or the mother is Jewish, then the children are all Jewish. That shita was outvoted 2,000 years ago, in the days of the Tanaim. And the third shita is that it all depends on the mother. You ignore the father, it all depends if the mother is Jewish. Why shouldn't there have been a fourth shita? Rabbi Kivega there on the Gilyon Ashas asks on Tosfos, where did they find three opinions in the Gemara? He said, I don't know. The Mishnah says in Yevamos, it all depends on the mother. So the Chazon Ish has a short paragraph in the Sefer on Yevamos, but he shows where all the three opinions appear in the Gemara. Correct, Rabbi Kivega is correct. You look in the Mishnah quotes the accepted opinion, la halacha, it all depends on the mother. But Tosfos is not saying that that's the din. They're saying there were two other opinions in the days of the Tanaim and the days of the Amoraim. There was an opinion that either parent is Jewish, makes the child Jewish. And the other opinion was that you need both parents to be Jewish. The accepted opinion, the accepted sheet is the way it says in the Mishnah, all depends on the mother. Why shouldn't there have been a fourth opinion? And that should have been the accepted. It should all depend on the father. If you have a mixed marriage and the both parents are Jewish, it depends on the father. If you have a mixed marriage and the both parents are not Jewish, one is Amaleki, one is an Amayni, one is a Mitzvah, it all depends on the father. Why shouldn't it be the same over here? If you have a mixed marriage and one parent is Jewish, one parent is not Jewish, why shouldn't it depend on the father? Why do you have to make all the three logical possibilities and the fourth logical possibility is the most logical? That nobody holds like that. Why not? Why doesn't anybody hold like that? So the answer, I think, is simple. Because the nations of the world are called mishpachas. And this is a din. Mishpachas avkuri mishpacha. Mishpachas amenikuri mishpacha. Do you belong to Mishpachas Amalek? Do you belong to Mishpachas Aman Amoyim? Do you belong to Mishpachas Chiti, Amori, Aprizi? To be Jewish is clearly not a function of what Mishpacha you belong to. We believe there is an institution of Gerus. A non-Jew can convert and he becomes Jewish. He's not Mishpacha with anybody. He's no longer Mishpacha with his previous relatives because Gershon is Garki Kotten Shanel Adami. And it's for sure he didn't get married yet. He doesn't have any Jewish mishpacha at all, and nonetheless he's Jewish. So that sheet is out of the question. To say that to determine whether the children are Jewish should depend on the father, like in Kol HaTorah Kula, mishpacha savkri mishpacha, cannot apply to determining that the children should be Jewish, because that's clearly not a function of mishpacha. we believe in the institution of Gerus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham Avinu, Lech lecha me'artzecha v'nivrechu b'cha v'escha legoy gadol, I'll make you into a nation goy. By the Umm there's no concept of a nation. Mishpacha iso adama. They're mishpachas. In Tanakh, they're referred to as goyim, goy hu aratzos. That's a slang expression. Strictly speaking, the only goy, mikam chisol goy echad baritz. So Jewish people are the only goy. Goy means a gviyah. Gviyah means a body. So the whole nation is considered like one entity, like one body. By the Umm there is no such cloud. The Gemara said beferish in the end of Nazir and Perek Hakusim, the very end of Masechas Nazir, that the concept of tzibur and kohol and Eidah only applies to the Jewish people. By the Umm there is no such concept. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, "Ve'escha legoy, your children will become a goy, one big gibiyah, one big body." How do you translate v'nivruchu? So the Ibn Ezra translates miloshen havracha, that the nations of the world will be able to marry into, will be able to convert and join on, like you graft on a branch from one tree, you break off a branch from one tree, you graft it onto another tree. That's called havracha. So the Ibn Ezra interprets, I think the Rashbam maybe also interprets like that, Pirish Amilis. It doesn't mean v'nivruchu b'loshen bracha, that the others learn, Rashi learns like that, Loshen Bracha. Then when the Goyim will give a bracha, they say, you should be successful like Avraham Avinu. You should be successful like the local rabbi, like the Jewish people are successful. But the other Rishonim translate, V'nivruchu miloshen habracha. Avraham Avinu was told that we accept Gerim. We will accept Gerim. The Jewish nation don't necessarily have to be the biological descendants of Avraham Avinu. Whoever wants to can join the Jewish people. So again, that's that's the din that the Gemara learns out from this pasuk, that mishpacha sav kriyim mishpacha same ain't a kriyim mishpacha. And the purpose of the census was for the army. You're not supposed to draft people into the army younger than 20. The Israeli government does draft people younger than 20. It's keneged adin, the way Rashi seems to. Rambam never quotes this din. Question is, was he relying on the Chumash? The Rambam writes in the introduction to his Sefer Mishnah Torah, all you have to do is read what it says in Tanakh. Read my book, and you know all there is to know in Halach Lamaisa. So if you read the Chumash, you see that you have to be 20 years old. Just because the Rambam left it out doesn't necessarily mean that he disagrees with Rashi. Rashi over here says, you see from the pasuk, you don't draft people into the army if they're younger than 20. So someone will say the Rambam disagrees because the Rambam never quoted it. It could be he feels he doesn't have to quote it. If it's a pasuk in Chumash, it doesn't have to quote it. Ramban raises the question when, when later on, when Moshe Rabbeinu is here, Moshe Rabbeinu with the 12 Nesiim are taking the census of Bnei Yisrael. So how did they take the census? Ramban suggests in Chumash that Moshe Rabbeinu went to each tent and he asked the father of each household, write down on a piece of paper how many people there are in your family. So you would write the husband's name, the wife's name, and the children, the sons and the daughters. And Moshe Rabbeinu would look at and he put all the piece of paper together, and they added them up, and they came to this number, the Sheish Me'asel, so on, the Shishim Ribo. So the Hasidic Rebbes have a practice that you give a kvittel. You write on a piece of paper the name of all the members of the family, and the Rebbe looks at it and gives a bracha. That's based on this Ramban. Ramban al-Chumash says, how did Moshe Rabbeinu take the census? He went with the 12 Nesim, and so on. They went to every tent, and every head of the household gave him a list of all the names in the family, and Moshe Rabbeinu would look at the names and give them a blessing. So this is the original mocker of the practice of giving a kvittel to the Rebbe with the names of the members of the family is the Ramban on this pasuk. After the pasuk lists off all of the 12 Nesim that Moshe Rabbeinu has to have with him to take the census, so it says, Ele Kurei Ha'idah. How do you translate Kurei Ha'idah? So Rashi on pasuk Tezayin translates, I think everybody learns that Kurei Ha'idah means those who would gather together to discuss communal issues. So the Ramban has an interesting comment on Parshas Emor. Shabbos and Yom Tov are referred to as Mikra Kodesh, and the davening also referred to Mikra Kodesh Zechel Yitzias Mitzrayim. How do you translate Mikra Kodesh? So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah seems to translate Mikra Kodesh, you should recite Kiddush. You should Mikra means recite Kiddush, declare the day as a holy day. Ramban translates it Miloshin Kroi Ho'eda. Mikra Kodesh means that Shabbos and Yom Tov is a day of holy assemblage, that the Jewish people have a special mitzvah to gather together on Shabbos and Yom Tov to learn Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur and to daven Tefillah b'tzibur. All week long, it's a recommended, it's a good idea. You stand a better chance of having your prayers accepted if you daven b'tzibur than if you daven b'yochid. The mashal the Gemara gives is if you buy a whole bushel of apples and you're going to have one rotten apple from 150, so you can come back to the store and say, I want my money back. I want you to switch it. It's understood there's going to be a rotten apple in a big barrel. But if you only bought one apple and the one apple was rotten, so that's a mekach toes. So if a person offers his prayers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he may be a rotten apple. Maybe the Baruch Shalom is not interested in accepting his prayers. But if he dabs together with the tzibur, so one rotten apple together with everybody else will be accepted. The Baruch Shalom will accept your prayers even if you happen to be the rotten apple. Stand a better chance of having your prayers accepted. So that's all week long. But on Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's a special mitzvah in HaTorah to daven tefillah b'tzibur. There's a Pri Megadim has a very big chiddush in Hilchos Shavuos. He writes this chiddush that at the beginning of the night, a lot of people stay up to learn. And then when it comes 12 o'clock, all the people go to sleep. And then 1, 2 o'clock, all the people go to sleep. By the time it comes in the morning, only the younger people are awake and all the older people already went to sleep. So he raises an issue. The minyan that they're going to have in the morning, Tefillah b'tzibur on Yom Tov, is a din d'oraisa, according to this Ramban. And the Beis Yosef in Hilchos Pesach thinks that the Mesadre HaTefillah, the Anshe Knesset Agdol who composed the Nusach HaTefillah, probably thought like the Ramban. Otherwise, why did they introduce that phrase Mikra Kodesh into the Tefillah? Mikra Kodesh means a day of holy assemblage. We're going to daven Tefillah b'tzibur, so it has a shaychus with the davening. That's how the Beis Yosef thinks. So the Pri Megadim says that the Gemara has a discussion. A boy reaches the age of 13 and becomes bar mitzvah. He really has to have shana v'simonim. He has to have shtei cyrus be'eva ha'erva. Who checked him to see if he has the shtei cyrus? So we usually assume for dinim deraisa you have to check. For dinim derabanan it's not necessary to check. So that you have to say you need a minyan to say a davar shebigdusha. So we usually assume that din is only midirabanan, that you require a minyan for davar shebigdusha. So we rely kol shehigir l'chlal shanim, higir l'chlal simanim. If the boy is already 13 and the girl is already 12, they probably have the shtei cyrus. We don't have to check. With respect to dinim deraisa, and the Magen Avraham writes in one place, with respect to all dinim deraisa, you have to check to make sure. So if you come to shul on Yom Tov morning, you have 100 people there, 100 men. So Mr. 10 of the adults are going to be bar mitzvah for sure. So you don't have to worry, maybe half of the people don't have shtei cyrus. So what? But you have among 100 people, and probably for sure, you're going to have 10 who do have shtei cyrus, so what bar mitzvah? But on Shavuos morning that you barely have a minyan, you only have 15 people, and maybe a lot of that are young, and the younger people, and they're just barely bar mitzvah. So maybe you shouldn't rely on that. He assumes that tefillah b'tzibur is deraisa, and Yom Tov means every tefillah should be tefillah b'tzibur. One can say you daven one tefillah b'tzibur on Yom Tov, must speak. Or I can say it's a chayvus hatzibur to organize that there should be tefillah b'tzibur. So there's going to be a later minyan. There's a vasikin minyan. For those who stayed up all night, then it's going to be a regular minyan. So the tzibur fulfilled tefillah b'tzibur. The Pri Megadim has a mechudesh dik understanding that this Ramban that's quoted by the Beis Yosef in Hilchos Pesach, that Yom Shabbos and Yom Tov have to be Mikra Kodesh. You need tefillah b'tzibur deraisa. It means every tefillah that you daven on Shabbos and Yom Tov should be tefillah b'tzibur. Wow. But that's where he got it from. The Ramban got it from this pasuk Tezayin. Ele kroi ha'eda. Kroi ha'eda means those who gather together. So the Lashon Mikra Kodesh means the day of holy assemblage on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So the pasuk gives us the census of every shevet, and then they add everything up together, and it's over 600,000. What's the significance? Why does the Chumash have to tell us this? So many of the Rishonim are of the opinion there was a major machlokes in Hilchos Shabbos. One of the last of the 39 malachas says Haitzah. If you carry in the Rishus Harabim Dalaram, so if you carry from Rishus Hayachid into the Rishus Harabim. So there's a group of many Rishonim, they had the Girs in the Gemara. We don't have it anymore. They had the Girs in the Gemara that it's only a Rishus Harabim Deraisa if it's the way it was in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, that there were Shishim Riba people traveling on the highway when they were traveling in the Midbar. So that's why the Chumash writes the number Shishim Riba, and the Rashash points out that when the Rishonim say you need Shishim Riba, it's a little inaccurate. It means Shishim Riba plus Shloshis Alafim V'Chamesh Me'os V'Chamishim plus change. It's not only Shishim Riba. Why should they establish based on this pasuk that that's the din for the definition of Rishus Harabim Deraisa? So the Torah tells us that there was a special Hayruah Shah, how they had to travel in the Midbar. There were 4 Dgolim, and each Degel had 3 Shvatim, and altogether there were the 12 Shvatim, and the Levim had to be Saviv al Mishkan Yachanu, special way to travel. This was only a Hayruah Shah. There is no such thing. L'Doros had to travel. It's a Hayruah Shah. Hayruah Shah of what? Hayruah Shah of how to travel. So the Gemara understood, no, it's a Hayruah Shah of Binyan HaMishkan. There's a mitzvah v'yaseh leMikdash to build a Beis HaMikdash. And the days of the Midbar, there was a Hayruah Shah has to be a Mishkan. A specific style of a Beis HaMikdash has to be a Mishkan. And when they were traveling in the Midbar, the traveling was a Hayruah Shah had to re-erect the Mishkan in a new location. So it had to do with Hasiyas HaMishkan. And the Gemara tells us on the first daf in Bava Kama, how did the Tanoim determine which are the Lametes of his Malachas? So they determined based on the Psukim and Chumash that the Torah tells us we should build a Mishkan, but not be Mechal Shabbos in building the Mishkan. Binyan HaMishkan is not Bechel Shabbos. So the Gemara derives from that, whatever was a major activity that was important in Asiyas HaMishkan is considered a Malacha. Whatever is not a major activity is not considered a Malacha. That's how we established. So what do you mean Asiyas HaMishkan? Not Hakrovas HaKarbonis. There's a machlokes, some Goenim hold Hakrovas HaKarbonis. The Egli Tal in his introduction to his Sefer quotes this machlokes. Some Goenim say not only what was necessary in Asiyas HaMishkan, even what was necessary for Hakrovas HaKarbonis. And most of the Rishonim assume not so. Only Hach Dahavi b'Mishkan Chashiv in constructing the Mishkan. So constructing the Mishkan includes traveling in the Midbar, carrying all the things, all the parts of the Mishkan, to bring it to the new location. So that's why the dinim of Haitzah, the Malach of Haitzah learned that, the Gemara says, learned that from the traveling in the Midbar. So because in the Midbar there was Shishim Ribo, that's how half of the Rishonim insist that in order to be considered a Rishus Harabim Deraisa, you have to have Shishim Ribo people. That's why the pasuk ends off. It's a striking lashon. It says, pasuk Nun Daled v'yasem and Esok chodesh hatziv Hashem es Moshe kein osem. The term mitzvah is a technical term that only applies to a mitzvah that applies throughout all the generations. If something is only Hayruah Shah, a temporary din, it's not called a mitzvah. That's the Rashi in the first pasuk on Tzab. Lashon Tzab Lashon Ziris Miyad U'Lederis. Rashi is quoting from the Tanoim, from the Sifra. It only qualifies as a mitzvah if it's Noig Lederis. That's the Rambam and the Sefer Mitzvahs has 14 klolim to determine which mitzvahs, which obligations should be included in the counting of the Taryag mitzvahs, which not. So the Rama has the second klal is only a mitzvah that's Noig Lederis. You don't count dinim the Rabbanan he has, and you don't count dinim that are only Hayruah Shah. You only count dinim that are Noig Lederis. How can the pasuk say the traveling in the Midbar was a Hayruah Shah? It's not a din Lederis. The answer is no, but Binyan HaMikdash is a mitzvah Lederis. We also the Mishkan is a mitzvah Lederis. The details, these details happen to be Hayruah Shah. So the pasuk can use the expression they were fulfilling the Hayruah Shah of that mitzvah Lederis. There is such a mitzvah Lederis. The pasuk tells us that the role of the Levim was the Levim was Shomer Mishmeres HaKodesh. The Levim had to sing Shira, okay, had to lock the gates. They were divided into 2 groups, Shorim and Mishorim. Mishorim were the ones who sang, and the Shorim were the ones who locked the gates, opened the gates, locked the gates, and so on. They had to assist the Kohanim. But the Levim had to be the palace guards. The Rambam writes, not necessarily that we're afraid someone's going to steal something from. Someone may steal something from the Beis HaMikdash, okay, but that's not the main purpose of the Shmiras HaMikdash, to protect the Beis HaMikdash from theft. It's rather that if you have a palace that has guards in front, it's more b'kovedik. So that's a question. Even though we don't have a Beis HaMikdash now, the Abnei Nezer has a tshuva. Maybe we should organize that. We should have Levim standing in front of the makam of the Mishka. The Beis HaMikdash used to be to stand guard to fulfill the mitzvah of Shmiras HaMikdash. So the Avnei Nezer thinks that that's a joke. If you don't have a Beis HaMikdash, what do you mean palace guards? It enhances the beauty of the palace. There's no palace, so it doesn't make sense to have palace guards. There was a big Talmud Chacham who was very famous, Rab Chaim Zimmerman. He learned in Europe. He was Rab Baruch Beer's nephew. He learned by Rab Baruch Beer. Then he learned in YU by Rab Moshe Soloveitchik. Then he was the head of the Skokie Yeshiva. And then he moved to Eretz Yisrael. For a while, he learned by Rav Kook, a big Talmud Chacham. So he published the whole Dvar Torah. He thought not like the Avnei Nezer. He wanted to organize all the Levim should get together today. They should take turns to be the palace guards of the Mishkan. The Pashtus is like the Avnei Nezer said, that this mitzvah of Shmiras HaMikdash, to have guards in front of the Beis HaMikdash, only makes sense if you have a palace. If you don't have the palace, even if you hold Kitcha Losi Lava, the Makam HaMikdash has Kedusha, but there's no palace, so it doesn't make sense to have palace guards. It's interesting in chapter base, Pasuk Yud Zayin Menasa Amod Machne Halvim Psach HaMachnas Kashiyachnu Ken Yisou Ish Al Yado Ledigleihem. From the Psukim, Rav Elvela Soloveitchik points out, even without Rav Elvela, it would appear like that. There seem to be two different dinim over here. There's one din that's a Hayrashah, that when they travel in the Midbar, traveling is a Hayrashah, being in a Mishkan in a new location, this Machna should go first, that Machna should go second, and so on. And the Levim, and when they travel and when they encamp, the Levim should be in the middle. That's a Hayrashah. That part is a Hayrashah. And it was also Hayrashah, the Doris, there was a din, there's three Machnas. Machna Shechina is the Azor, and the Harabais has a din of Machna Leviyah. And then the whole Yerushalayim has a din of Machna Yisrael. So in the Midbar, the Levim encamped immediately around the Mishkan, so that had the status like Harabais, that whoever was a Zab, a Tumah Yotzon and Megufa, wasn't permitted to go in that area. If a person would be a Tamim Meis, he was allowed to go, not allowed to go into the Azora, Machna Shechina, but a Machna Leviyah, a Tamim Meis is permitted to go. But a Zav, one who has a Tumah Yotzon and Megufa, is not allowed to go into the Machna Halaviyim. So that was the Hayruah Shah. And then there's another din that the Levium had to do Shmiras HaMikdash. They were the palace guards around the Beis HaMikdash. When the Levium traveled, it says later in Chumash Bamidbar, when they were traveling in the Midbar, excuse me for 1 minute, I'll be right back. apologize. Okay. We left off by the Levim. Yeah. So there was one din that was only Hayruah Shah, and one din Ladaris. Din Ladaris says that you need Shmir. Part of the job of the Levim, Ladaris, is to stand guard in the Beis Hamikdash. Some locations that had Kohanim standing guard, and some locations that had Levim. That's a Mishnah Maseches Tamid. That's a discussion why. And some of the Levim who were standing guard were not even bar mitzvah. So that's the question. Why did they allow the children younger than bar mitzvah to do the mitzvah? They should have insisted you need to give people who are bar mitzvahs. And the Minchas Chinuch has a discussion of that. So the one din is a din l'doros that the Levim should function as Shomei Mishmeres HaMikdash. They should be the palace guards. The other din was the Hayruah Shah, that was part of the din, the Hayruah Shah of traveling was that the Levim, where the Levim were encamped around Oil Moed, was had the din of Machna Leviyah, and one who had a Tumah Yotzel Megufa wasn't allowed to be it. And L'Doros, that's the whole Harabais, has that din. Or the Ramban points out later in, I think in Bahaloischa, Nosa Bahaloischa, the Ramban points out that based on the Chumash there, here it's unclear, that when they traveled in the Midbar, there were 4 Degolim. First, one Degel, it says who goes first, who goes second, and so on. Then it says that Gershon and Merari left at one point, and Kohas left at a later point. It's unclear whether Gershon and Merari, the Levim, Gershon and Merari left in between the first Degel and the second Degel, and Kohas left in between the second and the third Degel, or another source in Tanoim, the Bryce and Malachas HaMishkan says that Gershon Merari left after the second Degel, and Bnei Kohas left after the third Degel, in between the third and the fourth. And the Gemara has an interesting Chiddush din that the Machna Leviyah retained its status even while they were traveling in the Midbar. Had a din of Machna Leviyah. Even they weren't in a specific location, they were traveling and moving still. So the question is, which of the two had the status? The Psukim said later that Gershon and Merari traveled first, either in between the first and the second, between the second and the third. And then Bnei Kohas traveled afterwards, Degel after. So did both areas, both where Gershon and Merari were and when they were traveling, and Kohas, both locations had the status of Machna Leviyah, that anyone who had a Tumah Yotzel Megufay wouldn't be allowed to enter, or maybe only the Machna Kohas. So Rav Avila Soloveitchik quotes Rashi in Maseches Zvachim, and he points out the simple reading of the Pasuk Yud Zayin, and also Oil Moed Machna Halavim. When they were traveling, only Bnei Kohas carried the Mishkan. Gershon and Merari carried the other things. The Nosei Ha'aron were Bnei Kohas. So he has sources from the Bryce and Malachas HaMishkan that only the location where Bnei Kohas were traveling had the status of Machna Leviyah while they were traveling, and the location where Bnei Merari and Bnei Gershon were did not have the status. When they were stationary, then it had the whole area had the status of Machna Leviyah. When they were traveling, the only location that retained the status of Machna Leviyah was Bnei Kohas, where they were. So that's why it says, Machna Halavim. While they're traveling, which one has the status of Machna Levim? Only where the Oil Moed is. An interesting Kiddush. How come the Levim are not included in the count? So the Rambam has a famous comment in the end of Hilchas Shmita B'Yovel. The Rambam writes that Shevet Levi was not drafted into the army. Other Rishonim disagree. Shevet Levi were drafted into the army. Where did Rambam get it from? Because the opening pasuk says they took a census of all of the Shvatim, but not including Shevet Levi. Shevet Levi is not included. And the purpose of the census was to establish how many men are there over the age of 20 who will be drafted into the army. So it sounds like Shevet Levi was not drafted into the army. Then you have the Psukim in Parshas Matos. The Chumash tells about Mechemes Midyan. So it says they took Elef Lamata, Shteimasa, Elef Chalutzei Tzavah. They took 1,000 soldiers from each Shevet, and added up to 12,000. And so how do you have 12,000? But there were 12 Shvatim without Shevet Levi. So the Rambam says, because Yosef was divided into two, Menashe and Ephraim, and every Shevet gave 1,000, so there should have been 13,000. So the Rambam's answer is Shevet Levi didn't serve in the army. Shevet Levi never served in the army. That's how the Rambam says. Why is that? So the Rambam says because Shevet Levi, it says Yoreh Mishpatecha Liyankim Seiroscha Yisrael. Shevet Levi are supposed to be the Levim, and the Kohanim are supposed to be the Rabbanim, supposed to be the Dayanim, supposed to be the Malamdim, those who are the rabbis, those who teach Torah to the public. So the din is you're not supposed to draft Talmidei Chachamim in the army. So the whole Shevet Levi was supposed to be the international kollel of Klal Yisrael. They're supposed to all be sitting and learning, and we have to support them. So that's why Shevet Levi never got a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. They're not supposed to be farmers. They're not supposed to be in business or industry. They're supposed to be sitting and learning and teaching Torah. So that's why the Rambam says, that's why Shevet Levi was not drafted into the army. And then the Rambam adds on a line that became famous in recent years, that any individual not from Shevet Levi who wants to volunteer to sit and learn in a kollel, he becomes an honorary member of Shevet Levi, and you don't draft him into the army either. That's what all the kollelim in the world have made popular that Rambam, that whoever volunteers to sit and learn becomes an honorary member of Shevet Levi. Other Rishonim disagree. They hold Shevet Levi was drafted into the army. The question is whether you drafted Kohanim into the army, because an army, it goes to war and they shoot to kill. So there are going to be dead bodies all over the place if you're at a battle. And the Kohanim are not allowed to be Metamel Mason. So this was an issue that was brought up in recent years, in the early 1900s. I think it was Rabbi Nathan Adler was the chief rabbi of the British Empire. At that time, there used to be a British Empire. And the Kohanim, I think at the time of the First World War, if I'm not mistaken, the Kohanim said, you can't draft us in the army. We're not allowed to be Metamel Mason. So he discussed it with the members of the London Bezdin. They always had prominent Rabbanim in the London Bezdin. And they said, no, from the Gemara and the Rishonim, you see, not only do you draft Shevet Levi, you draft Kohanim as well. Because the Gemara talks about the din of Yifas Toyar. A soldier in the army who wants to marry the non-Jewish girl whom he kidnapped, whom he captured as a prisoner of war. So the Torah has all the dinim of Yifas Toyar. So the Gemara has a shaila, what if there's a Kohen who's in the army and he wants to marry a Kohen is not allowed to marry a Gioris. So is he allowed to marry the Yifas Toyar? A regular Jew is not allowed to marry a Nochris. So here we bend a little bit. The Torah is lenient. The Torah allows the Jewish soldier to take the Yifas Toyar, even though her conversion is not, even though she doesn't convert, or she converts against her wishes, it's a problem. So it's a chiddush. But maybe the chiddush doesn't apply to a Kohen because the Kohen has a double issa. Even if she will convert out of a full agreement, a Kohen is not allowed to marry a Ger. So that's a discussion in the Gemara. So if the Kohanim are not drafted into the army, so what's the whole discussion? The heta for Yifas Toyar is only for one who's a soldier in the army. So that's what the Mordechai in Gittin points out this Gemara in Kiddushin, and the later post can quote that. You see that you draft not only Levim, you draft Kohanim into the army as well. We mentioned it on a previous occasion. The Rab Shlomo Levilna wrote a sefer Binyan Shlomo, and he had a whole essay. He was a Kohen. Shlomo Levilna was a Kohen. He had a chiddush that a Kohen cannot be the Balkorei on Shabbos Parshas Zocher, because the Sefer Chinuch writes that women are not mechuyev to hear Parshas Zocher, because the reading of Parshas Zocher is only necessary for men who have to serve in the army, who can serve in the army. So they have to remember, when it comes time, you have to join the army to fight Amalek. Women are not drafted into the army, so they're not mechuyev to hear Parshas Zocher. Shlomo Levilna came with a chiddush that Kohanim are not drafted in the army either. So therefore, they're not mechuyev to learn Parshas Zocher. So if they're not mechuyev, then they can't be the Balkorei to be mitzvah the others, because whoever, let's say the best Baltekeh in the community is a woman. Can she be blowing shofar in shul? So the Mishnah says, no, Mishenim b'chuyev b'dover. And in order to be mitzvah others, you have to be mechuyev b'dover. So Reb Shlomo Levilna had this suggestion that maybe Kohanim are potter from Parshas Zocher, just like women are potter. So he deleted the whole essay because his brother, who was a bigger Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Tzalel told him that it's ridiculous. We don't know exactly what part was ridiculous. Did he think that Kohanim are drafted into the army? That's what he thought was wrong? Or he thought maybe you don't draft Kohanim into the army, but there's still even Parsha Zachar. We're not sure what. But Reb Shlomo Vilna left it in a table of contents. He writes what the topic was in that essay, and my brother told me to leave it out because it's wrong. So he doesn't tell you why it's wrong. He tells you what he originally said. So that's the Rambam's opinion, that when they had Elef Lamata, Shneimasa, Elef Chalatzei Tzava, Menashe gave 1,000 soldiers, Ephraim gave 1,000 soldiers, and Shevet Levi didn't give any soldiers. Rashi and Chumash says not so. Rashi and Chumash understands that Menashe and Ephraim are one Shevet. Each one gave 500. There was between the two of them, there were 1,000 soldiers, and Shevet Levi also gave 1,000 soldiers. And the pasuk says there in Mechemes Midyan and Parshas Matos, I forgot the lashon already. Kol, the lashon is kol shevet. So the Rashi interprets kol shevet is to be kol is a riboy, to be marba even shevet Levi. Even shevet Levi also served in the army. So that's so the simple reading of Parshas Bamidbar is that the Levim are not drafted into the army. They were not included in the original census. Then the Torah instructs Moshe Rabbeinu. Pasuk Gimel Lamed Gimel Halavim Lo Haspak the Besach Bnei Yisrael Kashatziva Semeres Moshe. The Levim are not included. Then Moshe Rabbeinu had to was told to make a separate census of the Levim. He made twice. He made a census Ben Chodesh V'Mayla, and then he made a census Ben Shloshim Shana V'Mayla. So the first opening pasuk in chapter Gimel reads, Ela told us Aaron and Moshe, V'Yom Dibur Hashem al Moshe b'Har Sinai. And then it doesn't tell you told us Moshe. Then it told us Aaron, the descendants of Aaron, Elishmos b'nei Aaron, and so on. So the Gemara, Rashi quotes the Gemara in Sanhedrin in the second parak in Sanhedrin. The Gemara says, when did Moshe Rabbeinu become the parent, so to speak, of the children of Aaron? When the Rebbeinu Shalom told the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu had to transmit it to the Bnei Aaron, so then they became his tolders. Before he taught them the Torah, he wasn't considered as they weren't considered his tolders. After he taught them Torah, then they're considered his tolders. What's the relevance of this statement? So that's what the Chafetz Chaim writes, and you look at the first page in Shulchan Aruch Ibn Ezer, a few Achreinim write like this. If a couple is, for some reason or another, unable to have children, so they should really adopt. And adopting a child is a partial fulfillment of the mitzvah of Pirya V'Rivya. The mitzvah of Pirya V'Rivya was Pruruvu Milas Haaretz, to populate the earth. We need people. If Adam Arish is not going to have any children, so that's going to be the end of the world. He's going to die. So you should have Pruruvu Milas Haaretz V'Chib Shua. By the time it came Maimon HaSinai, the Rebbeinu Shalom decided he has enough human beings in the world. He doesn't need any more. So the whole mitzvah changed. The Gemara says it only applies to the Jewish people. After Matan Torah, the Pruruvu is only obligatory on the Jews, not like Kodem Matan Torah, that it was told to Adam Arishan and to Noach in the end of Parshas Noach. And the whole nature of the mitzvah changed. According to the Rambam, the Gemara has a machlekes of Yechon and Reish Lakish in the end of Perek Haba Yavimta and Yavamis, and in the end of B'choros and Perek Yesh B'chor, the Perek about Pidyon Aben. There's one Perek there. Next to the last Perek in B'chor is all about Pidyon Aben. So the Gemara has a machlekes of Yechon and Reish Lakish. If a non-Jew was married and had children before he converted, then he converts, is he in fulfillment of Pirya V'Rivya with the Goyish children they had from before? So we pass like Rabbi Yechanan, machlekes of Yechon and Reish Lakish. We pass like Rabbi Yechanan that he is Yotze with the children that he had before. So many learn Pshat in the Rambam. The Rambam says, when this guy who uban avimo, he converted and the children converted. So the Maggid Mishnah learns Pshat, and many agree with the Maggid Mishnah, that the only time the ger is Yotze with the children that he had before is provided the children convert. But if they remain non-Jewish, then he's not in fulfillment of the mitzvah of Pirya V'Rivya. Kodem Matan Torah, the mitzvah was just to populate the world, to milas haaretz. And even non-Jews were mechuyev. But after Matan Torah, the nature of the mitzvah is we should have children to secure the future of Torah, to be able to transmit Yiddishkeit to the next generation. And if a person has children and he lets them wild, he lets them, leaves them loose on their own, and he doesn't transmit Torah ideas to them, he's not really in fulfillment of the mitzvah period. The mitzvah really is to have children and to transmit Yiddishkeit to the children. So even if a couple is unable to have their own children, they should adopt or they should support the yeshiva. That's how the Chafetz Chaim translates the pasuk Hashem l'sarisim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells those who are unable to have their own children, they should be machazikim b'vrisi. They should support Torah. If you support Torah, malakasu kili yalada. If you're teaching Torah to others, the Gemara tells us that Ben Azai either never got married or he got married and he got divorced. He didn't remain married, didn't have any children. So the Rambam quotes that Gemara. A person who's choshka nafshe b'Torah, he's crazy about learning, he just can't see himself getting married. It's not for him. So the Rambam writes, "Ein biyado avon." He's not in violation of the mitzvah period review. Why not? It is biyado avon. What if he just can't get himself to eat matzah? He's a vegetarian. He can't get himself to eat korban pesach. Yesh biyado avon. Even if you're a vegetarian, you have to eat korban pesach, whether you like it, even if you choke on it. You have to eat korban pesach, and you have to eat matzah, even if you choke on it. You're mechuyev to do the mitzvahs. What do you mean? Marriage is not for me. You're mechuyev to go to a psychiatrist, to go to a social worker, whatever, psychologist, and he'll explain to you how you have to get married. So Rav Soloveitchik explained, no, Ben Azai was a teacher. He was Malamed Torah. He was a Tana. He was teaching Torah in public. So he was Malamed Ben Chaver Torah. He had partial Kiyum mitzvah he had. The full Kiyum mitzvah is you should transmit Torah to your own children. You should have your own children, and you should teach Torah to your children. But b'di'evet, if that's not for you, you can fulfill the mitzvah partially by teaching Torah to others or by supporting yeshivas. L'machazikim b'vrisi. So that's, the Gemara learns it out in this pasuk. First pasuk in chapter Gimel. Ela told us Aaron and Moshe. The children of Aaron are considered told us Moshe. Rashi quotes it from the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the second parak in Sanhedrin. It's interesting, the Ramban and on this Sedra has a comment. Isn't it strange if you look what the population was of every Shevet? Shevet Levi was so tiny. How come they were so small? You would think that they're such big tzaddikim, they probably had bigger families, no? Like today, the ultra-Orthodox have bigger families than everybody else. So how come Shevet Levi was so tiny? So maybe after they had the Mishkan and they're responsible for carrying all the Klan Mishkan, maybe they were mizalzel in the cover of the Mishkan. Maybe then many would die. Mesa b'dei shamayim, Azara karev yumas. But here the census was taken before they started dealing with the Mishkan. How come Shevet Levi was so tiny? So the Ramban has a very fascinating suggestion. So some suggest that the Shevet Levi are going to be the rabbis, and Klal Yisrael has to support them. So the Rebbe Shalom gave a break. He gave a break to Bnei Yisrael. There shouldn't be so many rabbanim because they'll be Bnei Yisrael will be taxed. They have to support more rabbanim, more Shevet. The bigger Shevet Levi is, so the more yeshivas. So the more you have to give them Ma'aser to support them because they're sitting and learning. That's what some of Farshim say. But the Ramban has an interesting suggestion. He says there's a Medrash Tanchumeh and Chumash Mois that says that Shevet Levi was not Tachas HaShibud. Rashi and Chumash quotes it. In the Shibud Mitzrayim, you find Moshe Rabbeinu is floating around, Aaron is floating around. How would they have the ability to float around? If everybody was enslaved, everybody had to make bricks and they had to make buildings, Pisam Ramses and everything. So how come Moshe and Aaron are floating around? So that's what the Medrash says. Apparently Shevet Levi was never included in the Shibud. So Ramban says those who were suffering in the Shibud, they were blessed. They were blessed. Ken yirbe v'chen yifroitz. Kashianu oisam ken yirbe v'chen yifroitz. But the Shevet Levi was never involved in the Shibud, so it wasn't Kashianu oisam. So they didn't have the blessing of ken yirbe v'chen yifroitz. So they quote there, Rav Kook used to say, he lived in Eretz Yisrael the last years of his life, of quite a few years. So he over 30 years, I think. So it was under the British at that time. And the British gave the Jews a hard time, and the Arabs gave the Jews a hard time. So he pointed out, if you look into recent history, every time there's a setback and the Arabs or the British give the Jews a hard time, there's a big jump. 2-3 years later, there's a big jump ahead. Every setback brought history back. Later on, it went back to the direction that it was supposed to go. Every time there was something that seemed to ruin the yishuv of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, later it turned out l'tova. So that's like the Ramban has on this week's Sedra, that the Shevet Levi was not blessed with the bracha of Ken Yirba v'Chen Yifreitz because they weren't suffering in the Shibud. It's interesting. We have a few times the pasuk Hazar HaKorev Yumas. You have it, I think more than once. Maybe it's more than twice. I'm not sure. So once by the Kohanim. The Kohanim have to do the Hakrovas HaKarbonis, and Hazar HaKorev Yumas, a non-Jew who will be Makro Karbonis, is Chai Misi B'dei Shamayim. Then you have it by the Levim. The Levim have to do Avodas HaMishkan, and they had to be appointed. Each one had to be appointed. The Gemara learns Pshat. The Gemara has a famous statement, Mishora Shashir Chayev Misa. If one of the Levim is supposed to be with the orchestra, he's supposed to play music. He's supposed to sing. There are those who sang and those who played music. So if he's supposed to be a Mishora, and then instead he goes to lock the gates or open the gates, Mishora Shashir Chayev Misa, because of this pasuk, Hazar HaKorev Yumas, doesn't mean he's a zar. He's a zar la'oisa avoda. He wasn't nismana. The Levim had to be appointed. Usually the Kohanim appointed the Levim. I want you to be in charge of this gate, not that gate. And I want you to sing in the choir, not to be in charge of the gates. So Hazar HaKorev Yumas, if he's a zar to this avoda, then it's also Chai Misa B'dei Shamayim. The Sefer HaChinuch writes a big chiddush that din, a Mishor Shashir Chai Misa B'dei Shamayim, even applies to Kohanim as well. If a Kohen does the avodah that was miyuchad for another Kohen, so Rabbi Abba Soloveitchik thinks, first Rabbi Abba quotes a Ramban and Sefer HaMitzvos is the same as the Sefer HaChinuch. He finds the whole thing very surprising. He thinks that Pasha Pshat is not so. Pasha Pshat is that that's only a din in the Levim. And the Kohanim, all the Kohanim had a schus, they had the right to be Makar Karbanis, so they're going to kill each other. So the Mishnah Taka says on one occasion they killed each other. 2 Kohanim ran to the Mizbeach, and each one wanted to do the shechita of the carbon tamid. Strictly speaking, the shechita of the tamid is kasha bizarre. You don't even need a kohen to do shechita of karbonis. But by the karbonis tzibur, by the Tminim Umasafim, the karbonis tzibur, the practice always was that only the kohanim did the shechita. That's what you see from the Mishnah is like that. So they used to have, they figured out a whole system. Who has the right to do the shechita of the karbonis? So the Mishnah in Yuma tells a story. Once 2 young Kohanim were running, the practice was they would run towards the Mizbeach. Whoever got first up to the Mizbeach had the right to do the Shechita of the carbon. So 2 Kohanim ran, and one beat out the other one, and the other one who lost the race was so upset, he took his knife that he was going to shech the carbon, and he stabbed the other Kohen and he killed him. Then the father of the dead Kohen was there, and he saw the way they took the knife out of his son's heart, and they saw the son was still alive. He hadn't yet died. So the father who just lost his son was just killed in the Beis Hamikdash. He said, Baruch Hashem, the klisharis, the knife didn't become tummy. So the Gemara says, what an idiot. He's more worried about the klisharis becoming tummy than about his own son. Shvichas damim in the Beis Hamikdash. So you see from the Gemara that they didn't appoint a specific kohen to do any specific avodah. They had to figure out, like a chalukas hashutfim and diniman, who has the right, who has the schus to do this particular avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Hazar HaKorev Yumas by the avodah means a non-kohen who'll do avodah. In the Baisheni period, they used to have a sign up. When you go to visit near the Koslam Aravi, they still have this sign in, I think it's in Latin, either Latin or Greek, I forgot already what language it is, that the non-Jews are not permitted to enter this part of the Holy Temple, and if a non-Jew enters, they'll put him to death. So some say it's based on the pasuk Hazar HaKorev Yumas. A non-Jew who enters Har HaBayis is put to death. There is no such thing. That's not pshat in the pasuk. Hazar HaKorev does mean a non-Jew. The word zar does mean a non-Jew, and Korev does mean he walks in, and Yumas does mean Misa's Bezin. Means Misa B'dei Shamayim. For a non-Kohen, Udos hakravas hakarbanis. But it does mean that a non-Jew who walks in is Chai Misa B'dei Shamayim. So they took a census twice of the Levim. One census from the age of Ben Chodesh Hamayla, then the other census was Kod Kol Zach Ben Chodesh Hamayla, then the other one was from the age of 30 and up, because they only did Avodas HaKarbanos from the age of 30. So Rashi quotes from the Gemara in Chulin at the end of the first parak, Daf Chav Dalet, I think. The Gemara in Chulin points out there's a stira. Here it says from the age of 30, and then there's another pasuk that says from the age of 25. So which is it? Is it from the age of 30, the age of 25? So the Gemara says there had to be apprentices. They would come at the age of 25. And it took them 5 years till they learned how to play music and how to sing and how to do all the avodas halavim. It took 5 years to master the art. So the Gemara has a kasha that in Sefer Daniel, it says that the Jewish boys who were sent into Golus Bavel at the time after the Churban Bayis Rishon, so they went to university to study political science. And then they would be advisors to the king of Bavel, the Melech Bavel. There would be politicians. So it says there that the whole graduate program is only 3 years. So how come over there it's 3 years, over here it's 5 years? So the Gemara has a machlokes. Is basically every graduate program should really take 3 years. But over here, the Avodas Halavim was more complicated, so this takes 5 years. This is the exception to the rule. But the rule is everything else you can master in 3 years. A 3-year smicha program. It used to be a 3-year smicha program. A 3-year graduate program in any other discipline. Or should I say the reverse? Maybe every discipline really basically takes 5 years. It should really be a 5-year smicha program. Every discipline takes 5 years, but politics is easier. So politics you can master in 3 years. So that's a machlokes hatanoim. Which is the rule and which is the exception to the rule? Is the rule 5 years and 3 years for the politics is the exception, or the rule is 3 years? So what's the difference? So the Rashash and some other Achrayim write that Tosfos has a kasha in Pirkei Avos. It says Mishman Esrei L'chuppah. He's supposed to get married at the age of 18. Then there's a Gemara in Kedushin, the end of the first parak, where the Gemara talks about getting married. So the Gemara says if a person reaches the age of 20 and is still not married, so the Ban Shalom is upset. Why didn't he get married? What's taking him so long? So Tosfos and all the Rishonim are bothered with the kasha. Here it says 18, here it says 20. Isn't it a contradiction? The Tosfos says not a contradiction. You don't marry the first girl that you meet. You marry the first girl, the first date that you go out. You start trying to get married at the age of 18, and then you got to shake a leg. You shouldn't wait till after 20. The maximum they give you is till 20. That's how Tosfos and many Rishonim say. So the Rashash, in one place in Ksubis, writes like this, and some Sfaradish Achrayim write like this, also interesting. They think it's really a machlokes hatanoim, because the Gemara says, what should a person do? He has a choice. Should he first learn Torah, or should he first get married? Which should he do? So the Gemara says it doesn't make sense that he should first get married and then learn Torah. When he gets married, he has a responsibility to make a parnasa to his wife, and they're going to have children. If he has to make a parnasa, how will he be able to learn? So when a person wants to learn, so the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos gives you a whole program. B'chamish le'mikra, b'nesa le'mishnah, and ben chamesh esrei the Talmud. Between the age of 5 and 10, they teach the children all of Tanakh. Between the age of 10 and 15, they teach the children all of Mishnayos. Then, starting from 15, they teach them Gemara. So how long do they have to learn Gemara that they should develop a derech? 3 years or 5 years. So that's what they say. Well, that's a machlokes hatanoim, whether basically all disciplines can be mastered. You can get the knack of the discipline in 3 years. And the Levim is a Yetz Min HaKlal that it took 5 years. Our all disciplines really take 5 years. And politics is the Yetz Min HaKlal. So that's what a few Achrayim say, that's the teretz to the steer in the Gemara. You have to give him either 3 years or 5 years that he should be able to pick up a derech and learning, and then he can get married. Before he develops the derech and learning, it does make sense to tell him that he has to get married. So that's a discussion that the Gemara has on that pasuk. On the two psukim, one pasuk says the Levim were counted from the age of 30 and up, and the other pasuk says that they do the avodah from the age of 25. So the Gemara explains they come as apprentices in the age of 25. They don't do the avodah till the age of 30. Then the Gemara points out the Leviim were substituting for the Bechorim in Bnei Yisrael. So the Avodah used to be Bechorim, and then when they all worshipped the Egel, so then they were all rejected, and Shevet Levi, none of them worshipped the Egel, so they were taken instead. So the Pasuk says, every Levi patted a Bechor, and those 273, how many were there? I forgot already. I think 273, that there were more Bechorim than there were Leviim, so they had to give 5 shkalim each. But what about the Behemoth Alvim Tikhu Tachas Behem Tom? So that doesn't tell you a number. How many? There must have been more Behem Tom than there were Behemoth Alavim. So the Gemara says, Se Echad Min Halavim Potar Kama Pitri Chamorim of the Israelim. So the Gemara learns that halacha lamaisa from that l'doris, that if you use this set Petach Hamor Tifta B'Seh, if you use this set to be paid at Petach Hamor, and then you give it to the Kohen, he can be used later on to be paid another Petach Hamor. There's not a din that this was Pidyon Petach Hamor can't be used twice, because in the original days of the Levim, at the end of Parshas Bamidbar, you see that Se'echad Pata Kama Pitri Hamor. So it's a din that there is also like that. The Gemara learns that from that pasuk. The concluding pasuk in the parsha will close with this. The concluding pasuk in the parsha says, the Levim are not permitted to be around when the Kohanim would put the klishores, the kelim and the Beis Hamikdash, into the sacks when they would have to travel. So different Rishonim wrote Minyan HaMitzvahs, Sefer HaMitzvahs. I think the Smag, one of the Rishonim, writes, this doesn't belong in the Minyan HaMitzvah, this is only a Harashah. It doesn't apply to Derech. So the Mishnah Melech wrote a Sefer, Derech Mitzvah, he has a Sefer, Parshas Drachim. So in the back of the Parshas Drachim, he has the whole country's Derech Mitzvah Secha, about the Minyan HaMitzvah. So he discusses that. He says that the statement of the Smag seems to be against the Gemara, because the Gemara says that there was once an incident in the Baisheni period. The luchas were removed from the Kodesh HaKadoshim towards the end of the Bais Rishon period. It says in Direi Hayam, Yoshua HaMelech was going as the luchas. Very problematic. Why? The pasuk in Direi Hayam gives you an explanation why. It's very unclear what the explanation means. But he was going as the luchas. He put them in a chamber in the basement that Shlomo HaMelech originally, when he built the Bais Rishon, he followed the Megillah B'Ksav that David HaMelech gave him. David got it from the Novi. And he built the Beis Hamikdash according to all the instructions, according to the blueprint. And the blueprint had it that there has to be a chamber in the basement to put the Or in when the time comes. So the days of Yoshua HaMelech, they put it there. It's unclear exactly why. What was the cause? So then the Gemara has a whole historical debate. Where were the luchas during the Baisheni period? The Mishnah in Yuma says that the luchas were not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Or was not there, but where was it? So there are different opinions. So the Rambam takes a stand. It's a question, why did Rambam take a stand? It's the historical machlokes. The Rambam takes a stand. He holds that it's halachic machlokes also. So in the Mishnah Torah, he assumes la halacha that the luchas were there in the basement the whole Baisheni period. So the Gemara tells a story according to that Tana. One of the famous story, I think, is the Hidden Ark or the Lost Ark. There's a movie, I think, about that. So one of the Kohanim in the Baisheni saw that there was one of the tiles on the floor was not in place, and he realized that it had a ring on it. So he picked it up and he saw it's a trap door. And there was a staircase going down to the basement. He walked down to the basement and he saw the Orim with the lucha. The Orim was there with the Kruvim, and he died because of this pasuk. So they had to take him out after he died. So the Gemara asks, but the Kohen Gadol went every year into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to do the Avodah on Yom Kippurim. He never died. You see, it's permissible to look at the Aron with the Kruvim. So how come that fella died? So the Gemara says, no, it's a din l'der, it's not a hayrasha, but the din l'der only applies when the Aron is shaloi b'mkaimai. Either when they're traveling in the Midbar, so the Aron is no longer in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They took everything apart, they took everything down. Or in the Baisheni period when the Aron is in the basement. When the Aron is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where it belongs, then you are allowed to look. When it's Shalom Kamo, then you're not allowed to look. Why? What is that all about? So the Gemara says that in marriage, there are two parts. There's Eris and there's Nisuns. When you have Eris and Kiddushin, but you didn't have Chuppah yet, so the girl is still living with her parents. and the Arusa is not allowed to be living with her husband. But after Nisuin, after Chuppah, then they're allowed to live together. So the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Bnei Yisrael is compared to a marriage. That's the last three psukim in the Haftarah. Verastach li li'adam, verastach li b'tzedek mishpat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu married the Jewish people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu married the Jewish people. The whole Shir Hashem describes the love between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Bnei Yisrael like one of a husband and a wife. So there are two stages. So when the Oren has been come, it's treated like a Nisuin. So when they have Nisuin, so the mom is living together. So you can't say they're not allowed the husband is not allowed to look at his wife. They're allowed to sleep together in the same bed. But when the Oren is Shalabim Kaimai, so then the marriage is a little bit weaker. So it's only like Erison. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't divorce us after the Churban Bayis Rishon. The Navi says to the many Bnei Yisrael, assume that the bris, the covenant, is no longer binding, and they don't have to keep any mitzvahs anymore. So the Navi says, I never gave a get to the Jewish people. You're still married to me. You're still obligated to observe all the mitzvahs HaTorah. So we're still married, but it's only like Erison. And when the Arban has been Komo, then it's like Nisuin. Then you're allowed to look at each other. We're living together. But when the Arban is Shalabim Komo, it's only a Pchina like Erison. So the Mishnah Melech, when he develops this whole thing based on the psukim and the Gemaras, so he quotes the half a minute. So he quotes the pasuk towards the end of the Haftarah. Hashem tikri ishi tikri od bali. What's the difference between ishi and bali? It means my husband. So he says ishi means my husband of Erison. Bali means my husband of Erison. So when the third Beis Hamikdash will be built, and the Aram will be back again, Bimkoma, we will refer to the Rebbeinu Shalom as Ishi means Nisuin, as opposed to Bali, which means Erison. Should all be Zechet to see Binyan Beis HaMikdash very soon. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Amen. Have a good Shabbos, Rebbe.
Nothing tomorrow?
10:30.
10:30 tomorrow. Perfect.
Shabbos, okay. Very good. See you tomorrow.